Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to Career Lab Wednesday. We're getting going live here. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Career Lab Wednesday. We are rolling. Great. Thank you, Jane. We are live here on LinkedIn and on YouTube. If you are joining in and this is your first time, there's a couple ways you can engage. I love it when you jump directly in on the Zoom link. If you can do that, I can talk with you one-to-one. If you don't want to do that, or if you're in a spot where you can't, you can always type your questions into the comment section. Go ahead and type your questions into the comment section, and your questions, they don't have to do anything with this topic. If the topic of leadership, is something that you're joining in for specifically, great. If not, that's fine. Any questions career related are welcome here. So anything that you're working on in your career, I am happy to work with you on that. Let me know. You can type your questions into the comment section, or you can join directly here in Zoom. Welcome, Eric. So as we're going, know that you can come off mute at any time or type your question into the chat or the comment section. And again, your questions, they don't have to do with you don't have to ask questions about this topic of advancing as a leader, but I do ask that you ask questions that have to do with your career. And I will end up tying it back to emotional intelligence. That's my expertise. So one of the things that is becoming more and more in the collective consciousness, well, let's say that, in more and more in our collective consciousness in business, we are understanding that emotional intelligence is what makes good leaders. Emotional intelligence is what, let's take out the word good. Because that puts a whole context on it that we don't even need to. That emotional intelligence creates effective leaders, more effective leaders. You have more impact. You impact others more as you increase your emotional intelligence. And so this is something that people have been increasingly aware of for the past 30 years now. But in a lot of ways, this is very revolutionary for us because we have been trained in so many ways that emotions make us weak, that showing emotions is a bad thing. And so we have developed all kinds of ways of trying to hide that or numb that. Welcome. Good to have you on, Akita. And as you're joining in, I want everybody to know that it's fine for you to jump in and ask a question and interrupt me at any point in time. You can always ask a question that you have about career. Does not have to do with this topic. That's totally fine. I'll keep sharing about this, but just know that you're welcome to, if something I say sparks your interest, you're like, wait, I don't quite understand that. Let me know. That's great. So as people are advancing as leaders, what I talk about is how emotional intelligence is becoming more aware of yourself, your feelings, the landscape of you. How do you process information? How do you process the world? As you understand how you process the world, how you take in information and then give that back out, then we get into social intelligence. So, okay, how am I now able to be aware of myself? I can read this other person better now. Because if I'm more aware of myself, that's the filter through which I'm experiencing the world. That allows me to be more aware of others. So, in this way, knowing yourself is so important. And that's why I put that as step number one in advancing as a leader. So self-awareness, recognizing one's own emotions and their impact on behavior and performance. That's a really big deal. I'll go ahead and throw that into the chat here because that is step number one is self-awareness. So it might be kind of funny because you might not think that, as a leader, to be effective, that knowing yourself, actually focusing on yourself for a little bit at first is really important. That's going to help you know how to communicate with others more. So I'm gonna bring up a slide here about leadership because I think as we're talking about advancing as leaders, let's just get the myths about leadership out on the table here. Because as we do that, we should be able to bust those myths a little more. So go ahead and share this. It's from a PowerPoint presentation that I'll do during speaking events. So I think everybody can see that. So one of the myths of leadership, okay, that leaders are born or designated. It's just not true. That nobody, some people have sometimes traits that will make it more likely that they would become a leader. But if they don't develop those, it's not going to happen. And anybody, even if you don't, if you see yourself as an introvert, an introvert might say, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be a leader. Not true. You can learn to shift enough that you are making more of an impact. So leadership definition is influencing the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions of others. So that's the definition of leadership. We have a whole bunch of ideas about what leadership is that just aren't true. If we break it down, it's a leader is somebody who influences the thoughts, feelings, and actions of others. And who does that? I do. And so do you. Every single person watching this right now, by the definition of a leader, we all impact the thoughts, feelings, and actions of others. We might not realize that we do. We might not realize how we do, but we all do just by existing. So in this definition of leadership, we're all leaders. And this is interesting then because it allows us the question of, well, if I'm a leader, what am I leading towards? So we're all leading all the time. And this is the idea of being an emotionally intelligent leader means that I'm leading from the inside out. I'm leading from what's going on in me and the reality that I'm creating, and that is then impacting the people around me. So here's another myth, is that strong leaders manage or control their feelings. Nope. We actually use our feelings. Our feelings inform us. There has to be a little bit of trusting and letting go, allowing ourselves to flow to be a stronger leader. If I have a complete lockdown on all my feelings and I don't let any expression out, well, I'm not going to be that good of a leader. So we want to look at the 5 primary feelings: fear, hurt, anger, sadness, and joy. Because as we get in touch with these core feelings more, as I allow my fear, my body to have a fear response, as I allow my body to have a hurt response or an anger response, that then allows me to make more of an impact in the world. This is very counterintuitive. Okay, yeah, that's right. Anybody can be a strong leader. So another one, leaders need to avoid the negative emotions and leverage the good ones. No, that is a myth. The big reason why that's a myth is because there's no such thing as negative emotions. Those 5 core feelings, fear, hurt, anger, sadness, joy, none of them are negative. They're simply data. They are part of existence. They're part of reality. And so as I learn to be present with my anger, then I can use that anger more effectively. We all want stuff. If we're going to go get it, we need to harness a little bit of anger. If I'm going to pick up the phone and call a potential client, there's a little bit of anger in that. I'm not, obviously, I'm not going to pick up the phone and yell at somebody. That's not going to be effective. But I have to be able to tap that anger a little bit in order to get up and move towards what I want. So there's a function that all of these feelings have. There's nothing negative about them. I might use them in a way that could be called negative, but the feelings in and of themselves are not negative. Okay. Another myth, good leaders aren't afraid to take risks. No, we're all afraid to take risks. Everybody is afraid to take a risk. So a good leader is going to be afraid. They're going to use the fear to determine what kind of risks they're going to take. They're going to say, you know what, I feel terrified of this, but I think it's the right thing to do. And so I'm going to be willing to be present with the fear as I take this risk. You know, I think about people in high-powered leadership positions. So think of all of our presidents. Think of the president. Let's go with Abraham Lincoln. He's one that I think history we can all really appreciate him. That guy was scared, and he should have been afraid. He was assassinated, and he knew that there was other attempts on him, and so it wasn't that he wasn't afraid. He was afraid, but he still did the right thing. So learning how to be present with our feelings, again, is so important. Now I got this picture of this guard dog because we think about fear and maybe all of our feelings as being a dog that is available to us, that we're able to tap those feelings, and I can use that at some point, but it doesn't have to be running my life. But if I'm aware of that, then I can engage with my feelings in a conscious way. So, all right, I'm going to stop sharing this now and check in here. So for everybody who's joining in, you are welcome to ask questions. You can come off mute or type into the chat any questions that you have regarding your career or regarding this topic of leadership and emotional intelligence. So to do a quick recap, what we're looking at is how self-awareness involves recognizing one's own emotions and the impact that that has on performance. So me being more aware of myself is step number one in being an emotionally intelligent leader. Now, the next step is being able to regulate. Notice I like that word better than control my feelings, but I'm able to be aware of and work with my feelings. Good. This is a great question coming in here. So how do I get better at trusting my instincts, trusting my gut? Whoa. Oh, that's so good. So good. I'm gonna get to that question. But it triggered was something that I just read the other day. George Friedman talking about AI. George Friedman is a geopolitician who I really admire. I think he has a very non-biased view of the world. I so appreciated when he said in his one book, America's Secret War, where he said, anybody who talks about our presidents as stupid is just not going to understand what's going on. Any president we've ever had is an incredibly brilliant person. They wouldn't have become president otherwise. And I just was like, man, I didn't want to hear that, but I think that's probably true. So he's somebody I have a huge amount of respect for. One of the things he said in his book was that, and in talking about artificial intelligence, is he was like, look, there's no way that AI is going to replace human relationships because it's not actually intelligent. Intelligence requires emotions. Whoa. because we're so trained to think that being too emotional is unintelligent. No, it's just that our relationship with our feelings can improve. But without feelings, without our emotions, we don't even have the opportunity to be intelligent. And there's the cool work that Anthony Damasio did on this, where people who had tumors on the emotional center of their brain, it took them like 5 to 6 hours to decide whether they're going to use a blue or a black pen. Like, so they had a questionnaire that they're going to fill out, and like they didn't even get to the questionnaire. And there's somebody on right now who can think of somebody in our life who is very, very smart, but who a lot of their life was out of touch with their emotions. And boy, they're always slow. And still to this day takes a long time. Oh, cool. Hey, I see you got a question, or you're agreeing? Feel free to come
I'm
off.
agreeing.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
agreeing with you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
one
yeah.
of those people that it took a lot of it took a lot of trial and tribulation for me to hold on. I'm so sorry. I got a lot going on in my background.
Gotcha.
Uh, for me to understand and center myself and align myself with who I wanted to be, understand my capabilities and my competencies, to build up my courage to be able to withstand some of the things that I have been experiencing my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Mandela effect is a real thing, and it can be imposed on you by
Mm-hmm.
others, which refers to what you were saying earlier about how we don't know the impact that we have on others. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that, I believe, is where we need to start with reflecting on who we are, where we are, why we are, so that we can move forward with whatever our purpose is. And that's where leadership comes from.
Amen. Akita, thank you. Thank you for summarizing that so beautifully.
Did
Is
I?
that,
Because I was, thank you for appreciating that.
yeah, you bet. And so, as we're getting to Eric's question here about how do you get better at trusting your instincts and gut? So from what you just shared there, I'm going to make some connections. Is that as I am aware of what Akita was just saying was very profound stuff. Because as I'm aware of the environment that I come from, the environment around me, and how my beliefs about myself, my beliefs about my emotions, as I become increasingly aware of how those beliefs were formed, then I'm going to be better able to make the choice to trust my instinct. So the question of how do you get better at trusting your instincts? Well, my my assumption in that question is that there's a little bit of a like, oh, it's going to happen magically, or at some point there I can do something, and I'm just going to now trust my instincts. It will likely take you choosing to trust. It'll likely take you saying to yourself, okay, my gut, my instinct says to do this thing, and yet I'm resisting doing this thing. But because I know that I'm kind of programmed in this way to not follow my gut on things, I'm going to choose to move forward on this thing and follow my instinct. Even though historically I wouldn't have, I would have held back. But in this instance, I'm going to do that. Now, if you want to be really strategic about this and develop this as a habit, that's what I recommend. Because if we only pick big things to take a risk on, well, the chances of that going well decrease. And if it's a behavior I want to maintain, if it doesn't go well, then all I'll do with my unconscious mind is say, see, anytime you trust your gut on something, it goes horribly wrong. So we actually want to do this more regularly. And that's why I recommend, if I'm going to train myself to trust my instinct more, is to start picking little things I can do. What are the little risks I can take in my everyday interactions where I can choose to trust my gut more? So a common one that people work if they're going into meetings is to just start allowing yourself to speak up more. So this is something I know you've worked on, is where you ask more questions and share more things. Right there, you're starting to train yourself to trust your instinct more. And another thing you can do is to allow yourself to feel the discomfort of things more. Just be more conscious every day of where you're feeling afraid, what you're feeling hurt about, what you're feeling angry about, what you're feeling sad about, and what you're feeling joyful about. Because right there, you're doing the most basic thing you can to develop more of a relationship with your instinct. You're opening up the lines of communication to your feelings simply by acknowledging that you're having them. So I love this question. I love this question of how do you get better at trusting your instincts, trusting your gut? So there's a couple things, again, I'll underline them, is you can simply be naming out loud or in your head or on a piece of paper what feelings you're having. And check in with yourself. This is something that in parenting programs I've been involved with, is that the parents will establish a thing at dinner time, or if they're not doing dinner and everyone's running all over the place, soccer games, etc., then on weekends when they have a family dinner time, parents will ask, what'd you feel today? What was it like today? What'd you feel about that? And so that they're opening up this internal line of communication about feelings. Well, I felt afraid when the teacher said da 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 da, and then I was kind of angry because I was like, and all of that, and allowing that to be okay. And so that's something that parents do, but that's something you can do with yourself. And that will get those lines of communication internally going so that you're better able to trust your instincts. As you allow yourself the feelings more, you'll trust them more. So welcome everybody. I see we've got a few more people joining in here. So I want to say again, all questions are on the table. Anything career related, it can do with this topic, or it can do, you can ask a question about your resume, interviewing your boss, your team, your purpose in your career. Anything is welcome here. And I will probably tie it back to social and emotional intelligence because that's my gig. So again, you can come off mute and ask a question, or you can type it into the chat or the comment section. So, I'll circle back to this getting better at trusting your instincts, because I think that's really cool. I think that's a really good question. If I think any one of us could relate to that and look at, how do I trust my instincts more? I've been doing this work for years. I've been a coach for over 10 years, and I've been in personal development stuff for 15 to 20 years. And I am working on trusting my instincts more. Last week in a coaching session, I get lots of coaching. It Why do I do it? Because it helps. Because it keeps me moving. It keeps me going at a velocity that I wouldn't do otherwise. I take more meaningful risks in my life because I use several coaches. So in my coaching session last week, um, I know my coach asked a question that helped me reveal to myself that, oh wow, as I've been in my business for the past 4 months now, I've been overcomplicating stuff. I'm still trying to make myself fit into a model of the organization that I effectively left last year. Huh, I'm still operating in this programming that I don't actually need to do. Huh. So I'm there's ways that right now today I haven't been trusting my instincts and my gut because I'm still afraid to do that. I'm still afraid and I'm still working on choosing to trust my instincts, choosing to trust my gut responses on things. So, Eric, I'm right there with you with that question. So, I really appreciate you asking because it's something I'm working on right now. And the truth of it is that I have a level of freedom that I did not I of course I had it because I can choose to do anything at any time. I can choose to go and do my business at any time. But now I'm actively in a level of freedom I wasn't before. And the truth of that is that's scary. I have freedom is scary. We don't know how did anybody see that movie World Leave the World Behind? The part that scared me the most was the part when the guy turns to Julia Roberts and says, and the most terrifying thing is that no one's in control. Whoa. So, whatever, that's a whole other subject. But on some level, each one of us has freedoms available to us. We have choices that we can make. And that is a scary thing. That is a disturbing thing. For me in my business, I'm free to do all kinds of things, and that is actually disconcerting to me. So as I allow myself to be more present with that fear, then I will trust my instinct more. I will trust my gut responses more. And so, Eric, one way I'm doing it, by the way, is I am moving into more public speaking because why? Because it's something that I want to do that I think I'd be good at. My gut says I should do it. So even though I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm doing it. Um, so great. Oh, good, good, good. We're getting more questions in here. So when answering interview questions about leadership capabilities, describe ways that disclosure can be applied. I may need you to come off mute and say a little bit more about that. When answering interview questions about leadership capabilities, what can you, if you don't want to come off mute because it's a, Eric, thank you. Thank you for your question. Great having you on. But if you don't want to come off mute, that's totally fine. But let me know what you mean by disclosure can be applied. What I think you're asking is, if I'm in an interview and the person interviewing me says, okay, well, tell me about your leadership capabilities. What I'm going to do is in a very bottom line way, I'm going to share ways that I made an impact. So let's say that I'm applying for a sales job and I've had a sales management position. And even if I wasn't officially a manager before, I might be able to say something in an interview like, well, at my last position, the team I was on increased sales from da 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 number to this in the last year that I was there. And the ways that I uh, impacted the team was I would make sure that other people could hear me while I was talking with a client so that they were able to pick up and learn from me. And I made sure that when I had questions, that I was able to get in and listen to people who were more knowledgeable than me. So right there, what you've done is communicated some key leadership things. Number one, that just by you being on that team, you helped to increase the number of sales. And then you gave a couple bottom line ways of how you did that, how people learned from you and how you learned from other people. So right there, when you're in an interview and somebody asks you a question about your leadership capabilities, you don't need to tell a huge story about it. You need to give some bottom line ways that you got results. Because if they have more questions about it, they're going to ask you. And then once you give some bottom line results of how you did that, it might open the door for you to say, something like, as I understand it right now, your company is at this level of sales. And that if I'm coming on that, I'm imagining I would be training this number of people or da 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 da. So that way you can ask an intelligent question about their needs and see if you're on the same page with them. And then you can get into a more meaningful conversation about the challenges that they have going on in their company and about how you coming on in that company, how you would be helping work through those challenges. So right there, if you can share a bottom line thing about ways that you were an effective leader at your last position or two, and then tie it into the ways that you see that applying in the role that you're interviewing for, you've already that's like the best sales job you can do. And sales for selling yourself in that interview. So you don't want to try to convince people that you're a good leader, because that doesn't work. That just lets me know, oh, this person's insecure and is trying to convince me of something because they don't really believe that they're good at this. You actually want to just give some bottom line results, some facts, and then ask questions about what needs they have. That right there communicates that you're an effective leader. Does that help? Let me know if that's what you were looking for in that question. Okay, positioning oneself for learning is one way answering that question. Yeah, because you're asking questions in the interview. And that is the approach. So we have a course on this, a career course where this is it combines just some basic common sense stuff, stuff that you need to check off when you are developing in your career. And then it also has videos and some worksheets that help you with this mindset shift from thinking that you have to convince and sell people to you being the interviewer, you being the person who is interviewing the interviewer, because that's actually what builds confidence for them, knowing that you're good. So it takes practice. because, and especially if if you really want the job or if you really need the job, then inside you're like, oh my gosh, like, please, I want this so bad. But if you've got that going on, that's only going to work against you. And so working on this mindset shift to, no, I'm the gift here. If I'm going to be going into this company, I actually want to know what it's going to be like for me. My one coach has told me before, he's like, George, when you're developing relationships and when you're going to decide if you're going to work with a client, play hard to get. That's your mantra now, is hard to get, George, hard to get. So as challenging as that can be for me when I'm talking to someone like, oh, I want to work with this client, is it's way more effective for me to be seeing really if there's somebody that I want to develop a long-term relationship with. Are they somebody that I really want to be supporting in their development? And that is going to serve them and me better in the long run. But it requires, now we're going back to this emotional intelligence thing, it requires that I'm able to be present with the anxiety and the fear that I'm having. Because if I'm not in touch with that fear and I'm just trying to jump over and I'm trying to act confident to avoid my own discomfort, it doesn't work. It doesn't work as well. So again, learning to increase my capacity to be conscious while I'm feeling afraid is actually the name of the game with this. And we start with choosing to believe that our emotions are good, that they are valuable, that there's not anything wrong with me. And I know, even though there's more and more people talking about this, our come from is that there's something wrong with feeling sad, feeling hurt, or feeling afraid. I mean, you see this at freaking funerals. People apologize. Like they get up and like talk about like their lost parent and they're like, I'm sorry that I'm crying. It's like they're apologizing for their feelings. So it's pervasive. And so it's something that we're all working on. Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I like the idea of one considering him or herself as the gift. That's a confidence booster while one is learning and growing. Yes. Yes. And by the way, it's so true. Even though our in the job market's all kinds of weird, and a lot of companies are not eager to hire because they know what a pain it can be in hiring the wrong person. So more and more people are becoming consultants for a while and then working with companies. And then at some point, the company is like, yeah, let's bring you on. So it is a challenge of doing this. But the truth is, too, is that they do need you and that you are a gift. Human beings, we're freaking amazing. We're able to learn and grow at any point in our life. We're able to shift how we interact with people and what we're doing. We're able to do that. We have this, and that's amazing. So human beings, every single person is different and has a set of unique gifts. And so the real question in interviewing is this a good fit for me? Am I a good fit for this place? Is this going to be a mutually beneficial relationship? So thanks for saying that. Yes, the considering oneself as the gift in the process. And we got some more stuff coming in here. So I want to actually, I almost missed this one. A question is, how do I prepare to grow as a leader? What traits are more favorable? Okay. So as a it's a complicated question because it has to do with you personally. Because everyone, as we all are our own unique gifts, we each are going to have our leadership style. Um, so I, one of the most important things you can do to grow as a leader is to be more in touch with your feelings, because that's like your main communication line. Um, we all have different personality styles. And so emotion is a universal language. I'm able to communicate more effectively with somebody, even if we don't speak the same language, if I am in touch with my emotions. Because there, let me try to do this. Like, if I try to talk to somebody in another country where I don't speak the language and I'm like, I need to eat food, give me food. How much is that food? That's not going to work. But if I'm able to be like, now I bring in prosody, I bring in expression, and I start to animate more, and I start to be like I'm hungry, like now we don't even have to speak the same language, but they're getting that. It's like, oh, there's another human being. They have feelings. I have feelings. This is how we can overlay. So now take that from that extreme, from somebody who doesn't even speak the same language, and bring it into somebody who speaks uh, presumably English or Spanish. And we all have different personality styles. So I'm like Tigger. If you think of Winnie the Pooh, I'm kind of like Tigger, and a combination of Tigger and Winnie the Pooh. And then you've got people who are more like Eeyore, who are just like very like, okay, analytical about stuff, and can kind of tend to go be really hypercritical of themselves. And then oh, and then there's like the worriers, like Rabbit, or people who are very results driven. What kind of results? So we all have these different ways that we communicate that we're kind of unconscious of. And by me being able to be more in touch with my feelings, I will then be able to communicate with other personality styles more effectively. So if I'm talking to somebody who's more analytical, now I know that I'm going to turn my aliveness and excitement down a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of let that rest in my chest and my gut. And I'm not going to try to perform for that person who's more analytical. I'm going to sit back a little bit, and I'm going to become more analytical myself. And I'm going to ask more questions. And I'm going to allow them to ask more questions. And I need to be in touch with my feelings to do this, because otherwise what used to happen for me is that if I was talking to an analyzer, I would just start ramping up my performance. I'd start trying to be like, la, 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 like, look at me, like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get this, da, da, da. And like it just pisses them off, where they're like, what is this weirdo doing? So I actually have to be more in touch with my emotions and know how to regulate those emotions as a leader. And that helps me identify who I'm talking to. It helps me style shift and just be more effective of a communicator. If I'm talking to more of the regulator personality type, then I'm just going to give answers and give bottom line results to things. Say, oh, you've got that problem. You want to do this. So now let's try this again. I'm going to come back to this question. How do I prepare to grow as a leader? I'm going to pretend you're a regulator. So to prepare to grow as a leader, number one is develop your relationship with your feelings. Know that there's an infinite journey in terms of you becoming more emotionally intelligent. As you become more emotionally intelligent, you will become a more effective leader. So that was more for in case you're a regulator. Um, Now, if you are more of a cooperator personality style, like Winnie the Pooh, you care more about social justice and feelings, and how the group's doing. So then I would say to you, okay, how do you prepare to grow as a leader? I'll say, well, what you're going to want to do is actually get to know yourself and your feelings more, because that's going to help you be more aware of other people and how they're feeling. And it's going to help you relate with others more, and it's going to help them be able to know you better. And so you're going to be able to sense your feelings and what that means in the group more. And it's going to help you um, be able to help other people more. So I'll say it more like that, because that's gonna a cooperator is gonna understand that better. It's gonna go down smoother for them. Okay, wait, but there's more things here in this. So you want to continue to learn and grow, and you have several years of education and experience. Yeah, but you do not want your supervisor to view you as a threat, because, um, okay, what is for me is for me. Background, okay, okay. So oh, that's great. So if you don't want somebody to see you as a threat, that's really, really, really good. Um, so to grow as a leader, to prepare to grow as a leader, and that right there already, that you're aware that you could be perceived as outgrowing or outshining somebody, that's wonderful. You're you're showing that you have a sensitivity, and an awareness about things that could happen. So as you're developing, one of the things that you want to do, what I would challenge you to do, is with your supervisor, is to develop such a strong relationship with them that they will be sad to see you grow and pass them up or develop or move on to the next thing or whatever, but that they will feel so warmly towards you and have so much respect for you that they will, for the rest of your life, they would be a great reference for you. And I'll share a story of one of my clients, who she got into this because she went to her boss, who was basically her supervisor, and she said, what three things are most important for you to happen in this business, for you, for your, what you care most about? What three things are most important to you? And her boss listed three things and said, and you know what, out of all of these, number one is this thing, which now that looking back on it, it was probably had to do with AI, and was, this is an area of development that is really important, and none of us here really understand it, and nobody wants to take this on because nobody knows what to do with it. But I know that it's going to have a huge impact for us. And so he said, hey, you're asking me this. If you're willing to, I'd really like you to take it on. And she came to me in our next session. She's like, I don't want to do it. I was like, oh, I know. So we talked through it a little bit, and what she got to was realizing that it was going to mean, if she took this on, it's going to mean that she was going to fail a whole bunch. She's going to make a lot of mistakes, and that was not something she enjoyed. Like, none of us like making mistakes. But she also was able to talk it through and know that she was going to be getting her boss's support, and that she was going to be making mistakes, and that he was essentially going to be saying, that's okay. I need you to do it. And so I share this whole thing to say that in the end, it actually led to her next job. And she goes back to her boss at a certain point. She develops some new relationships as she's getting to this next field. She's like, oh my gosh, this is actually opening up all kinds of possibilities for me that I kind of need to take, because this is incredibly important to me in my development, and it's kind of now or never. And so she's talking to her boss about this. And of course, it's horrible because now he's losing one of his best employees. And at the same time, in the transition, she helped make things better in the company and helped replace herself. And when they threw a goodbye party for her, of course, her boss said, "Hey, and if it ever doesn't work out there, and I kind of hope it doesn't, no, you can come back here. You've got a place here." So that is an ideal, it's a beautiful story. Doesn't always happen that way, but if you can be shooting for that, see, a lot of us are so insecure and have so many authority issues that we're not really able to see our supervisors and bosses clearly. And so we just make up a bunch of shit. Like we make up a bunch of stuff that isn't real as a way, we're going back to the beginning of this conversation about how terrifying freedom is, that we actually have more leverage and more freedom and we're way more influential than we'd like to realize. If we're able to see our boss or our supervisor more and more clearly and to really understand their insecurities, their needs and things, and learn how to help them address those needs and insecurities in ways that are meaningful to them and help them learn and grow, well then damn, we're good, aren't we? So, really what I'm encouraging here is for everybody listening in to become a better leader in this way of leading by example, leading by way of your vulnerability, leading by way of really getting to know the people who you're leading, who, by the way, back to the beginning of this topic of who's a leader, everybody is. We're all leading all the time. So it's not just your boss or your supervisor, you're actually leading them because you are impacting them. You are influencing their thoughts, their feelings, and their actions. So this is just great. Wonderful, wonderful questions coming in. I have not even caught up with this stuff, and we're coming down to the hour, and I'm going to have to sign off here in a little bit. So let me throw a few things in here. You can always set up a time to talk with me. You can do a discovery call, find out more about you, what you're working on, see if coaching is a good fit for you. And you can also take a look at the personality assessment that I was sharing a little bit about. You can take the assessment and also review a little video on that. There's no cost for that. That's something I do with all my clients, and so I'm sharing that with everybody. And oh yes, Akita, I see that you're asking what's the regulator personality. So watch that video, and while you're at it, take the assessment, because taking the assessment, I was sharing it with my nephew, and he was like, you know what, I got more out of the video once I knew what my style was. So I recommend taking the assessment and then watching the video. And yes, oh, Akita, I love that. Oh, I love that about leadership, helping someone else grow. It waters us together. Oh, so you just tapped into the cooperator part of me, the Winnie the Pooh. I'm like, that's beautiful. That's really lovely and touching. Thank you for sharing that. Um, so yes, so Connect and Thrive. That's the link where you can check out more about personality styles and how to identify that. And then another thing is the program that I'm offering that is called the Foundations of EQ. That is an in-depth training. So there's workbooks, there's videos, and there's group time and one-to-one sessions with me. So this thing is like freaking amazing. I just did the first round of one last quarter. And so take a look at that. See if that's something that you're interested in. The dates on that I'll be changing because I want to have a few more people in it before I get the next cohort going. But that thing is so cool because you're getting the educational content And then you're applying that in the group time. So you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, but it's in a container with me as a coach and with other people who are also dedicated to learning and growing. And so you get to try out these new modes of being, doing things that are a little outside of your comfort zone in a group of people who are doing the same thing as you. And so the learning that happens in that kind of compressed environment is fantastic. So take a look at that as well. So as we're wrapping up here, you know, not all professional experience can be supportive. That's true. How can we control the anxiety from past traumatic experience invading and interrupting the leadership process? Oh my God, I love you all today. You're asking such good questions. Um, so yeah, and by the way, all your questions are so good because everybody listening in is learning and growing with you. Like, so this is serving everybody because I want everybody who's listening to be applying what you're hearing to yourself. So it's on you to be thinking creatively, even if you don't have the exact same scenario. It's way more interesting for you to be looking at how you relate. So how can we control anxiety from past traumatic experience invading and interrupting the leadership process? Beautiful. It's a little counterintuitive. The thing about it is that past traumatic experience is impacting you, is impacting all of us. We all, to some degree, have past trauma. Some of it's way more intense. When I work with people who had trauma from being in the military, where they, have their best friends die, that's something that they got to work through, and it comes up, and so the way that the past traumatic experience needs to happen is you do actually need to let that up. And the place to do it is not going to be in work. It's not going to be like on the job. You're going to have to find a place where you let that come up and your body processes that in a safe place for you to do that. And that way, when you're in work, when you're developing as a leader, you're going to be better able to regulate those deep feelings. So I took it to that extreme, but all of us have past trauma, concussions and things. I had an intense concussion when I was, I think, about 13, when a accident at the beach, and that was a traumatic experience. I've done work over the years to allow that fear to come up through my body and that pain to come up through my body and be released. And so there's all kinds of ways for us to be doing that so that we are able to be more present and conscious and engaged in the here and now as we are developing as leaders. So another fantastic question. I could probably do a whole day on that topic right there. So but that's just the high level of it. Everybody, thank you for joining in. I got to jump. See you next week. This is Career Lab Wednesday. Take care, everybody.